And hi everyone, it's Liam Naden back again with a new episode of our Growing in Love for Life podcast. It's great to be here, and I've got some information today that I'm really excited to tell you about. And I've called this episode 4 Questions to Save Your Marriage. Now it's hard to believe we're actually on to episode 27 of these podcasts. And I hope you've been listening to some of the previous ones. I know a lot of people have listened to all of the podcasts, which is great. And I hope I've been able to give you some ideas and strategies and techniques and things that you can actually apply to your own marriage situation, and which hopefully will make a big difference in helping you to save your marriage, which is obviously what this is all about. But it struck me the other day, and this is really one of the reasons I came up with the topic for these 4 questions that are going to help you save your marriage. And it struck me, here we are in our 27th episode. And with 27 episodes, you've got in your hands a huge resource. We've covered an awful lot of ground in these podcasts. We've covered everything from how to forgive your spouse for things that they've done wrong or ways they've hurt you, how to create better communication in your marriage, the sorts of things you should do to save your marriage, other things you shouldn't do. We've created there's a big resource here now of information that you can use. And of course, I've also got 2 very powerful relationship programs. One is my 7-day program, Stop Your Divorce, How to Save Your Marriage When Your Spouse Doesn't Want to. And that's a very powerful step-by-step program when your relationship is in a crisis and your spouse wants to leave, or maybe they already have, and you want to stop your divorce. So I really hope you'll check that program out if you're in that situation. Or I've also got my 30-day program, my Save Your Marriage Relationship Transformation program. And this is for people who have really lost their way in their marriage, and maybe their spouse wants to leave as well. But this goes into a lot more depth in how to really rebuild the intimacy, the communication, the passion in your marriage and get things right back on track. So I hope you'll check out those two programs, because they really are the best of my information given to you in a step-by-step plan that's proven to work. It's helped a lot of couples to save their marriage. So check those out. But in these podcasts and in my books as well, if you've read any of those, and just a word about my Kindle books, I'm really proud of them. I've created a series called the Growing in Love for Life series, and many of them have gone on to become bestsellers on Amazon Kindle. But in all of those things, I've really tried to do 2 things. The first thing is to give you, as I said earlier, practical things that you can do immediately that are going to create a noticeable difference straight away to your marriage situation, an improvement. But the other thing is, I'm also trying to give you some ideas to get you thinking in a different way. And actually, I think that's the more important. Because what happens when you get new ideas and new thoughts, and when you start thinking in a different way, you create new behaviors, and that leads to different results. And Einstein has a quote, "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them." And I think that's so true, and that's why we've got to change our thoughts, change the way we think if we want to get a different result. And I think, just to digress a little bit, but what we're seeing today is a big shift in the way people are being helped to deal with their problems in their life. And that comes down to relationships and marriage coaching as well. And I think this is going to be a much greater shift in the future, but it's effective, and it's very effective, because what it actually does is it's a shift away from just simply giving people the answers to actually giving people the right questions and helping them to come up with the answers that are right for them. Now, this isn't to say that you don't need to know the right things to do. You do need the answers, but you also need to know how to ask the right questions. And that's what we're going to do in this podcast as well, is help you create some more of the right questions and come up with better answers and better solutions.